Have you ever felt totally overwhelmed by all the productivity advice out there? The kind that seems like it was designed for robots, not actual human beings? Well, if that sounds familiar, you're in the right place. We're going to dive into a completely different approach, one that's all about relief, not a bunch of rigid rules. Man, this quote just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It's that feeling you get when you can't live up to some guru's impossible standards. You don't just feel like you had an unproductive day. You feel like you're fundamentally broken. We're here to talk about how to get off that roller coaster of promises and guilt. So the ideas we're digging into today come from this book, Tiny Productivity Wins. And its whole concept is basically a rebellion against this myth that being productive means being perfect. Instead, it's about making these small, realistic changes that actually fit into our messy, chaotic, real lives. Okay, so first things first, let's really break down the problem here. Why do so many of these super popular productivity systems just end up making us feel worse? The book has a great name for it, the productivity guilt trip. And here's the core argument, and it's a big one. You are not failing because you're lazy. You're failing because these systems were never, ever designed for you in the first place, right? They just don't account for things like sick kids or a bad night's sleep or, just not feeling it. They assume a level of superhuman consistency that most of us just don't have. And wow, this image is just perfect. That endless to-do list, it just keeps getting taller and taller, and with every single new task, that Jenga tower gets a little more wobbly until the whole thing just comes crashing down. It's a system that's basically designed to create stress. Okay, so if the old way is totally broken, what's the fix? Let's get into the book's core philosophy, which completely flips the script. It's all about choosing momentum over motivation. This right here is the key to everything, the micro win. We're not talking about huge, grand achievements. We're talking about something tiny. Like finally answering that one tough email or cleaning out a single drawer. And why does this work so well? It's neuroscience. Your brain absolutely loves finishing things. And when you complete even a tiny little task, it releases a hit of dopamine. That's the, hey, you did a good thing chemical. So you can really see the huge shift in thinking here. We're moving away from this idea of waiting for some heroic burst of motivation to build these perfect, flawless systems. Instead, the focus is all on small, repeatable steps that create momentum, one good enough habit at a time. So here's how this actually works. Each little win gives you a little bit of satisfaction, which then makes you want to take the next small step. It becomes this awesome positive feedback loop. And before you know it, you've built what the book calls an invisible ladder of progress. And you end up climbing way higher than you ever could by trying to make one giant leap to the top. All right, enough theory. Let's get practical. We're going to look at 3 simple but really powerful hacks from the book that you can literally start using today to start building that momentum. First up, we've got the 2-minute momentum rule. This one is designed to fight the biggest enemy of productivity we all face. That mental resistance, that friction of just getting started. The rule is just so beautifully simple. If a task is small, like replying to a quick text or putting a dish in the dishwasher, just do it right now. No debating it. And for those bigger tasks, like, say, writing a huge report, you don't commit to finishing it. Nope, you only commit to working on it for 2 minutes. That's it. Your goal isn't completion, it's just ignition. And this quote just captures it all. You're not sitting around waiting to feel motivated. You're creating a tiny bit of movement, and that movement is what actually generates the energy to keep going. It's like basic physics. A body in motion tends to stay in motion. Okay, let's move on to a hack that isn't about what you do, but what you choose not to do. It's called the no-list trick, and it is all about protecting your time and your focus. So instead of a to-do list, you actually create a list of things you just refuse to do. These are your personal boundaries. Simple, practical rules like I don't check emails first thing in the morning, or I don't say yes to things just because I feel guilty. What this does is it stops your time from getting hijacked by other people's emergencies or even your own worst habits. And the psychological shift here is just huge. This isn't about being restrictive. It's about giving yourself permission. Permission to say no and to protect your single most valuable resource, your attention. It quiets down all that mental noise and makes your decisions so much easier. And finally, a hack that is tailor-made for our modern, super distracted world, the single tab challenge. This one directly attacks that cognitive overload we all get from having like a million browser tabs open at once. Now, the steps here are so simple, but don't let that fool you. They're powerful. When you limit yourself to just one tab, you're creating a clear visual boundary for your attention. Think about it. Every open tab is like a mental door you've left open. This challenge forces you to close them so you can really deeply focus on the one thing that's right in front of you. And this is the feeling it creates. Not the usual chaos of trying to multitask, but that calm, amazing clarity you get from focusing on one thing. It's about creating a rhythm of progress that feels so natural, you almost forget you're trying to be productive. So let's bring this all home. With all these different ideas and hacks, where on earth do you begin? Well, the answer is actually really simple, and it takes us right back to the beginning. Look, if you remember one thing from all this, let it be this: forget about perfection. The entire point of these tiny wins is to make the bar for starting something so ridiculously low that you can't help but step over it. It's about building a system for yourself where progress, no matter how small, is pretty much guaranteed, day in and day out. And that leaves us with one final question for you. Right now, think about that one thing you've been putting off. You know the one that feels too big or too annoying. What would happen if you just gave it 2 minutes of your time? Not to finish it, just to start. That, right there, is your first tiny win.